Hi, everyone. Life Coach Carissa back with you to talk about why we must put a priority on taking care of ourselves. I am referring to self care, how we take care of ourselves. So, the term self care can really be thrown around a lot like a buzzword. And you may already be thinking, what more is there to know that I haven't already heard somewhere, Carissa? But what I really want to share with you today specifically is why self care is important, signs that you may need to make self care more of a priority in your life, and tips for doing that. And then lastly, I'm going to share myself as a case study of how I neglected my self care for many years, where that got me, and what I've done about changing that. And my hope is that my story may give you some inspiration or something to think about and make some choices for yourself of how you want that relationship with self-care to look like and be very intentional about it. Okay, so what is self-care and why is it important? Let's start with the definition of self-care. Okay, so the definition of self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. So, really, how many of us do this? When we are under stress, thinking about our self care is not what typically comes up first. More likely, it's the source of the stress that grabs our attention and all of our focus. And I think realistically, the self care, that part doesn't even come until we are in a health crisis or a place of exhaustion and we're forced to consider it. Otherwise, we just keep on going, doing what our primitive brain tells us that's most important. So we must pay more attention to our well-being. We cannot be the very best version of ourselves without doing that. I know you've heard this. You're no good to no one out to anyone else if you don't take care of yourself completely first. We hear that all the time. Everyone tells us take care of yourself, especially when they know we're under stress. But we tend to put our own needs at the end of the list. I know all this is rooted in good intentions, but just like when you're on a plane and you're told to place your oxygen mask on, first in order for you to be able to then help others, this really is the same advice that we should be taking in our own lives. By taking care of ourselves, we are in effect taking care of others in our life the best way that we can. I remember when I cleaned up my own self-care practice, I recognized that it made the energy in the household better. I recognized that as the mom, I would often set the tone. I don't know if any of you can relate to this. Do any of you feel that? There was this saying I heard somewhere in my life that if mama ain't happy, no one's happy. And it's a funny thought, but I really saw how that was true in my own family. I really did set the tone. So if I was stressed out, my kids might see it and act out in their own ways. If I was on edge, my husband may act out in ways of being on edge. Now, I know I teach a lot about individual responsibility for our thoughts and feelings and our actions, but we are all responsible for those. But I realized how much power that I did have with the energy that I was putting out into my family, my community, and in my world. So it's like if I want more peace in my day, my life, my community, my world, then I start with putting out more peace into those areas. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to anyone that we love. And don't you love yourself too? I mean, God has taught us that we're all 100% worthy of love. We are worthy of our own love, patience, forgiveness. Just as everyone else is worthy of that, we are too. So notice when you are much kinder and compassionate to others than you are to yourself. We must learn compassion for ourselves. It truly is a skill that we can practice and get better at. Many of us don't even know what's possible in taking better care of ourselves because we are stuck in thought loops and patterns of behavior. And this is where coaching can help show you a new path and challenge your prior belief systems and thought loops. But let's look at what might be some signs that we are sacrificing our own self-care. Because The body really has a fascinating way of letting you know when you are out of alignment. I see this now. I didn't know this before, or I didn't pay attention to it. But I don't think we look at this in this way enough. When your body is showing symptoms and signs, it is trying to tell you something. Its only way to get your attention is to send these signals. So, what are some? You may get sick often. You may feel anxious and irritable and on edge. Maybe you never feel great, even when you're not sick. You're always tired, maybe especially in the afternoon. You may suffer from migraines or headaches. Maybe you can't even remember the last time you went to the doctor to get a checkup for yourself. You may eat poorly. You're dependent on caffeine or alcohol or drugs. You maybe feel like you're in a brain fog a lot of the time. You may feel stressed out and overwhelmed. Maybe you don't take vacations or even plan time for your own relaxation or enjoyment. Maybe you can't even name what activities bring you joy. I was there. Maybe you struggle to stay present with people. I was there too. Or you struggle to even smile or enjoy laughter. Okay, all of these apply to where I was. Maybe you just want to be alone and distance yourself from people. Maybe your mindset is negative. Maybe you're focusing on everything wrong in your life and in the world rather than what is good and what you want to see more of. So why do we do this to ourselves? There could be many reasons, but I'm going to give you a few to just ponder. Often we may have childhood trauma or adverse childhood experiences that had a great impact on our behavior in the world. It can often be learned behavior that we see by example. Belief systems, we are shown as children often, and we're taught by repetition, and we carry these into adulthood. The world advertises that we should do more and be more. And I feel like it's this superhero syndrome where it's never good enough. You just keep raising the bar and keep feeling like you need to keep being better than you have been, keep aspiring for more. Maybe we compare our lives to others and we tell a whole story about that. We continue to add pressure to ourselves due to perfectionism. It's never good enough. Again, you keep raising the bar. Maybe we aren't really in tune with what we really want and why. Maybe we don't associate our worthiness with being 100% worthy. We associate it with the value of what we accomplish, right? So we attach this value to it. And maybe we just aren't taught self-compassion. We just don't know how. I would say that's probably a big one. We often don't promote to our children as they're growing up into adulthood of how to take care of themselves and how to have self-compassion, how to have self-care. Okay, so what are some tips for improving your self-care? Here's the thing, just start somewhere. Create a self-care routine that is yours. Start small. Pick one thing for 30 days, for 90 days that you will commit to doing for yourself. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you will aim to take this time aside for yourself each and every day. Or if you can't even start every day, pick several days a week or once a week. Just start somewhere. Create a routine that is yours that you can commit to and start small. Another area is work on cleaning up your past. I compare this to like, as you grow up in childhood, you just carry around this suitcase and you just keep adding things to it. And before you know it, you have this suitcase packed full of things. And it's like, we never take the time to open it up and be like, do I even want these things in here? What can I take out to lighten my load? So really take a intentional effort to clean up the things in your past that are weighing you down. Another tip is to allow yourself to slow down. You would be surprised for some individuals that are that high energy type A personality. We do not know how to slow down. We are like fighting forces within ourselves, and it can feel extremely foreign. Put a priority on yourself. Allow yourself to put a priority on what is important and what rejuvenates you. Clean up your mind each day. Focus on keeping a clean mind. Know what you want and why. Be able to tap into that. If I were to ask you, what is something you really want and why? Would you be able to answer it? Could you just grab that? Another tip is to make a plan for everything in your life, not just work. I think so many of us have calendars for maybe work or personal appointments, but like, I want a plan for everything: work, family, fun, self-care, all of it. It sounds crazy, but it can be done. Stop saying things to yourself that you would never say to others that you love. Just make that a rule. You don't do that. Take a proactive approach for practicing self-compassion. Notice when you are being harsh with yourself and slowly try to build up the awareness to recognize it, and then work up to the point where you can have that compassion and say, oh, I see what's happening here, but how else could I look at this? How else could I treat myself with more compassion? And the last tip I'll give you is, do not believe the myth that self-care is selfish. It is absolutely not. It is so vital that you take care of yourself so that you can be your best version of you for all those people that you love in your life. So here are some questions you could some starter questions that you could ask yourself to kind of get your brain flowing here with your own self-care practice. So in what ways are you not caring for yourself and it's spilling over into how you are able to show up for others? Really ask yourself that, to be honest. In what ways are you not caring for yourself and it's spilling over into how you show up? What warning signs is your body sending you? And maybe you've been ignoring it or pushing it away or just pushing through. What are those warning signs? What are you feeling? What's your body maybe telling you silently? What are the self-care actions that you really would like to incorporate into your life, but you think you can't? What do you think the positive effects could be on your life if you started doing some of these things? Let yourself live through that and think about that more deeply. And then lastly, why are you not doing it? What are the thoughts and stories that you keep repeating that are keeping you from making this change? Okay. So let me share with you my case study. I used to be a person that filled my to-do list with what everyone else needed and what had to get done. And essentially, I would see what time was left over for myself. But what I was never able to pause and see is that there was never going to be any time for me. I literally did this for over 25 years before I faced the reality of what those decisions created for me. So from my early 20s until my late 40s, this was my routine. I would get up. I would snooze my alarm for as long as I could get away with. I'd finally wake up. I would check my email, check social media. Then I would get mad at myself for spending that much time. I'd hurry up and shower. I'd get ready quickly. I'd run out the door without a plan for breakfast or lunch. I would often speed to work. I'd work all day long, typically from 7:30 a.m. until I got done, which got done was never an ending target for me. I had this idea that in order to be at peace and leave, I had to have every possible thing accomplished. Every email had to be answered, everything had to be attended to, and everything had to be cleaned out for the next day. I mean, come on. We all know how hard that is, but that was my benchmark. So I would work until 5 to 7 p.m. at the office, sometimes later. And when I would get home, I would constantly be glued to my phone, and I would ultimately feel the need to get on my computer and work, which I would sometimes do until midnight or later. And then I would do the same thing all over again. And then when the years that my kids were younger, you can see the complete flaw in this plan. I mean, as their needs came up and as those demands came up, I just viewed it as less and less time that I had to get all the things done that I needed to do. And I wasn't even present with them. I was just rushing through to the next thing. How quickly can I finish this so I can accomplish the next thing? I was always thinking about what I had to do next. And so I stressed and overwhelmed myself constantly, thinking that this was the only way. And when you get into a routine, it's set in motion unless you're intentional. So, where was all the time for my self care? There wasn't any. There were times when my husband and I would maybe break away after work and go take a bike ride with our cycling team, but I just found a way to make that stressful and overwhelming too. I'd always dream about doing forms of exercise that were actually like relaxing and enjoyable, like a walk outside. That was a dream. And I'd always want to read, in the evenings before bed. But what happened? I never had time. Oh, how many times I said those words. I don't have time. I just don't have enough time. I don't have time. It's all a lie. I mean, we truly make time for what is important to us, and we just aren't putting our own self-care at the top of that list. So years of that routine led me to a very poor mental outlook. I was so negative. I got so negative, I began to tell myself that I can't even stand myself. My future outlook deteriorated, and I began to feel hopeless about a future life that I would love living. It was more like, how do I just survive this? How do I get through? And I tried to stuff it down and tuck it away. And I was pretty good at pushing harder and harder, and then, wearing that like a superhero badge. But even with all that, willpower, I was not really showing up well for myself or my family. I'm not proud of the way that I showed up in a lot of those years. So, as some of you may know, my story by July of 2020, I was fed up and I was starting to really work on my mindset and habits. I began to work with a functional medicine doctor in September of 2020, and I learned that I was in adrenal fatigue. My gut was out of whack. I had a fair amount of inflammation in my body. Many of my systems had taken a hit and were functioning in high stress mode all the time because of all those years that I was living in that stress and overwhelm and always short on time. And so if I had continued on this path, I have no doubt that it would lead me to illness and disease, just not feeling good, right? More of the same. So I really began to put an importance on self-care, and over time, I was able to get clear about what was really important to me. I made some lifestyle changes, but I'm not even saying that you have to make changes as big as I did, like changing my career. Just learning that my excuse of never having enough time was bullcrap was life-changing for me. I have never said it again since. So what do my days look like now? Well, I have a planning system that I learned through my coaching certification that allows me to be extremely productive, which is called Monday Hour One. It was life-changing. I use my prefrontal intelligent brain to plan in advance what I want to accomplish each week, and I follow it. I do this on Sunday nights or Monday mornings. I plan it out that first thing before I start getting into any activities. And I have used this system for well over a year now, and it has been so life-changing. I accomplished so much in so little time. It's blown me away. And I don't feel guilty about having fun. And I put a priority on my self-care and things that are enjoyable to me. It's actually the opposite of how we are generally trained to be. Like, I start with self-care, my personal tasks that are important, and then I put in my business appointments and my tasks. I'm not saying that the other things that I need to do in my business are not important. It's just, no, I know that I am the integral piece in making all of this happen. And so I have to be at the top of the list. And you want to talk about how empowering and motivating that is? I mean, I don't care if you are at your job 8 to 10 hours a day, you still get to decide what you do with all those other hours, how you navigate those hours that are yours. You get to take charge and decide. Don't let your primitive brain tell you that you're tired and a better idea is to grab a glass of wine and that bag of Oreos. That's what mine used to do. So I wake up each day between 6 to 6:30, and I usually don't need an alarm because my body just wakes up instantly, just naturally. It'll wake up during that window of time. I don't check my phone first. I use the Headspace app, and I complete a 10 to 12 minute guided meditation. I journal in my journal, and I dump all the thoughts that are in my brain for about 5 to 10 minutes. Whatever's in there, I get it out. I clean out all the clutter. I go through a spiritual practice that I have. I learned this practice from speaker author Matthew Kelly, and it really allowed me to go deeper in my prayer life, because that was an area I always felt like I struggled with. I didn't know how to really be prayerful. And so that's been a solution for me. And so I really enjoy doing that. And I may choose to add in a manifestation practice from Wayne Dyer. I really enjoy those. I use those when I'm really wanting to go after something. It could be something or a feeling or a change in myself that I want in my life. I'll use those manifestation videos, and I really enjoy that. And then I'll exercise about 30 to 60 minutes each day, which may consist of any of the following. I might do an outdoor walk, which I love. I may ride my bike outdoors. Lately, I've been riding my bike on the indoor trainer just because of the chillier temperatures. But I will definitely try to get in some form of exercise each day. And if for some reason my plan doesn't go, because life does happen, right? We have this 50-50 life. I'll sometimes make up for it with a walk in the evening, right? But I try to really put importance on me being active. I will spend maybe 15 to 20 minutes doing an at-home yoga practice. I follow Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, and so I love doing those videos. She has all different links of times that you can focus on doing a practice for, and I'm sure to really bring in some stretching to all of that. And so I'll feed my brain with positivity, whether it's like audiobooks or podcasts that keep me focusing on, a positive mindset. And I'll sometimes do that while I'm doing my exercise. And this is all before 9 a.m., people. Like 9 a.m. comes and I'm like, I have done my meditation. I've done my prayer. I've done my journaling. I have done my exercise. I've done maybe some yoga. It's amazing what I can accomplish when I have a plan and I follow that plan. And so I will then go into my workday and I'll follow my plan on my calendar as far as my specific, work hours that I'm going to be working each day and what I'm going to focus on and what I'm going to accomplish. And I hold myself accountable to that, right? Because when I set up this plan, I was using my prefrontal intelligent part of my brain, not the primitive part of my brain that wants me to just chill and relax all the time and seek pleasure and comfort. I stick to the plan that I made because I know how important it is to me, right? To keep moving forward. So I'm able to really be present and available to my family. When we're all gathered together, I'm not thinking about all these other things I had to do because on my calendar, I literally have time with family. I mean, I put everything on there, and it may sound restrictive, but I'm telling you, it's the most liberating and empowering thing that I have ever done. I don't feel any guilt. I feel no guilt because I have put things on the calendar where they're supposed to be, and I follow it to the best of my ability. I follow it. And if I do have to make changes, I'll make those changes accordingly, but I never sacrifice my self-care. I don't let that be the first thing that I cast aside. I will figure out another way to do something else before I sacrifice that. So these self-care practices that I have implemented are huge in my momentum, and it has allowed me to make positive changes in my life and improve my health. I just had my 1-year follow-up in June, and my numbers don't lie. I am moving in the right direction. My body is recognizing that I am not in stress and overwhelm day after day. It's recognizing a calmer me, and it's showing in my numbers. It's all improving. Not to mention how I feel, Like I can't even explain that to you, the energy and the productivity that I feel on a daily basis. And I don't need a lot of these buffers that I used to have to help me get through the day. So I also want to make sure that I remind you, I am not 100% perfect. That is not the goal, and that's not what I'm trying to portray here. I can tell when I skip my self-care practices. I can feel the difference. So over time, I recognized how valuable it was for me to keep up a self-care routine, to hold myself accountable and know that these steps I take keep me healthier physically and mentally so that I can take care of myself for everyone around me. Even strangers I don't know. I have recognized that when I take care of myself, I have more patience out in the world. I don't get upset over the small stuff, and I can let people be who they are, all because I have more inner peace, because I'm putting a priority on that. Now I have come to understand that I have to be very intentional with my self care practice. I have to remind myself how important it is. I notice when I'm feeling the effects of not giving enough time to my self care, and I learn how to not give in to my primitive brain, my inner critic, when it says that I should just be doing something more productive with my time, or when it wants me to cut out my self-care practice routine and, shorten it for something else that feels more important in the moment. I remind myself that my mental and physical health is the foundation of everything I'm able to do in my life. And without that strong foundation, it eventually breaks down and shows up in the way of illness, mental or physical. So I hope that you will think about one or two things that you can start doing to put yourself first, knowing it will come back to everyone you spend your time with. It is not a waste of time. All right. So that is what I have for you today. And I hope you find this information about self-care helpful, and it gets you thinking about how you can implement or improve your own self-care routine. So if you would like a list of ideas, I have a whole list of specific ideas for self-care routines. You can send me a message on my website at lifecoachingwithcarissa.com, and I'd be happy to email it to you. No obligation for anything. These are all things that we really, should be taught as children and teenagers and young adults. And we just aren't shown or told, or, not a priority necessarily put on it. And, we aren't told how to do it and why it even matters. So if you found this helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you like this content that I'm sharing, please like and share my videos. Please subscribe to my channel so you can be the first one to know about new videos that I do put out. And, really think about, what are you going to do today, this week, this month, that's all for you? Answer that question and then hold yourself accountable, just like you would do for everyone else when they need something from you. Okay. So put yourself at the top of that list for a change. All right. Have a great day, everyone. And I will see you next time.